Welcome to the world where NFL starts and ends. I'm your host, Jacob. And to begin, there was breaking news entering this morning, as it actually happened late last night. The Las Vegas Raiders have fired Josh McDaniels and GM Dave Ziegler. And it also they also fired offensive coordinator Mick Lombardi. Now, let's first begin with McDaniels. McDaniels, no one could have expected this to happen at this point in time. It was too much. You were basically caving in on the year. It's not an an impossible task, more of a should we, shouldn't we kind of task. So McDaniels was fired after going six after going 9-17, 9-17 in the 26 games that he coached for the Raiders, and it was not pretty in any of them. Last year, the Raiders had the leading rusher. This year, they can't run the ball. Last year, they had a decently potent offense. This year, the offense looks like a disaster. Defense last year was pretty good. They were pretty stingy at times. This year, they have no defense whatsoever. They were lucky that they won a couple of games because watching the Raiders play offense is like the worst thing to do. I'd rather watch grass grow, which I will say that a lot about these teams this year. I said this about the Steelers. I said watching the Steelers offense is like pulling teeth without getting any lidocaine. Like that's basically what it's like. Well, with the Raiders, it's like watching grass grow because they can't do anything. It's like watching grass grow, except the only thing that grows is weeds. That's what happened here. To which a lot of people, including one fan of the Raiders, went and held up a sign on Monday Night Football and said, "Look, fire Josh already. Just fire him. It doesn't work. So stop trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. Stop trying to do this. This doesn't work." That remember that game when you were a little kid, you had this toy and you had a square, you had a triangle, you had a circle. And this toy, what you had this box that had a square shape, a circle shape, and a triangle shape of where you could put these things, where they would fit. And if you tried to put a square in a triangle, and with the triangle shape, it wouldn't fit. That's basically what this was like. You're trying to make it work, and it's not happening. So that's what happened with Josh McDaniels. It didn't work. The offense didn't fit. You brought in Jimmy Garoppolo. He doesn't fit it. There's a problem. Now, the reason Dave Ziegler was fired was McDaniels, as most of his assistants were former Patriots coaches, either of years past or before McDaniels left. The year that McDaniels left, these were all assistants. And McDaniels, he just never looked quite comfortable at all. In fact, like I don't know if his team even bought the ball anymore. Like they couldn't. The offensive line is bad. It's been bad. The running game, which was good last year, they can't run the ball. The wide receivers struggling to get open. Jimmy Garoppolo is struggling to get the ball to Davante Adams. Garoppolo is struggling in general. The defense, like they didn't give him credit, they didn't give up on Monday night. They didn't give up. But the problem is the offense did. So that's a problem. It's one of the reasons why Josh isn't there, because this team never found its groove as a cohesive unit. Dave Ziegler fired because he's Josh McDaniels' guy. You were not going to keep a GM around who didn't fit with what the new coach wanted. Now, the interesting one that I think about was they also fired this morning. They fired offensive coordinator Mick Lombardi. No relation to Vince Lombardi, no relation to Joe Lombardi, who would be Vince's grandson. No relation. That would have been the only positive thing he would have done with the Raiders, is had any relation to Vince Lombardi. But his offense, and they say his offense, that's not an exact. McDaniels ran the offense, okay? He had the OC title, but he didn't run the offense. But the offense was 31st in the league. They were not going to win games. They showed the Raiders this year hadn't scored more than 21 points this year per game. They scored 21 points or less. That's a problem. So who are the Raiders turning to? Well, it's defensive assistant Antonio Pierce, who played in the NFL. And every time you have a guy who becomes an interim coach, there's always, who is Antonio Pierce? This is the report. Who is Antonio Pierce? Raiders tab former NFL linebacker as Josh McDaniels' replacement following McDaniels' firing. That goes in and says, Pierce, who just turned 45 last Thursday, has served as Raiders linebackers coach for 1.5 years. He had a successful NFL career despite going undrafted in 2001. Former linebacker, played for Washington. Also played with the New York Giants, where he won a Super Bowl and was a defensive captain. Pierce had retired. Pierce retired in 2010 and began coaching in 2014 at his high school in Long Beach, Poly. Where he went to coach in the college ranks as a linebackers coach for Arizona State, became the associate head coach and defensive coordinator in 2022. He brought to the Raiders, and now Pierce has the opportunity of a lifetime in becoming the head coach or the interim head coach of the Raiders. Now, this shouldn't be a shocker. The Raiders do some weird things for interim coaches. Remember a couple years ago with Rich Bisaccia. But we all thought, oh, that ain't going to work. Oh, a special teams coach? You kidding me? He's not going to be able to do anything. They end up making the playoffs. They won close games. I think they won more games by 7 points or less than anyone. I think it might have been history. It was a ridiculous amount, but they were winning. It wasn't pretty, but they won. And I really thought Bisaccia would get the job. He didn't. this is a very much a similar path to bring in Antonio Pierce. Now, who is taking over the offensive coordinator? Well, it is quarterback coach. Bo, I'm gonna butcher this last name. Bo Hardegree. He's gonna take over the offensive coordinator position. He'll call plays, and we'll just see how it goes. But I said this earlier. Like, the fact is, he could easily just went. And if they did this Monday night or Tuesday morning, they could have gotten the word out. Instead, they wait Tuesday night. When I got the notification, it was 1 o'clock in the morning. It was ridiculous. Let's just see what happens with the new coach, Antonio Pierce. Moving on to now, this is a more of a rant. It's ripping the Cowboys media with some exceptions. I'm not saying that no one deserves blame. I'm not saying that. Let me get through this first. The exemption is Mike Fisher for this reason. First of all, I love Mike's work. I follow him on YouTube, as I'm sure, and I would hope you would as well. He's very smart. He's been covering the Cowboys for over 30 years. He knows Jerry Jones almost like the back of his hand. And he was disgusted. Not with the Cowboys, but with the Cowboys media as well. This is the Cowboys media. The Cowboys did not make a trade during the deadline. Okay. But instead of saying that we feel really comfortable with the guys that we have, the Cowboys would always speak out of both sides of their mouth. Well, we aren't, we are, we could, we couldn't. They didn't want to say either or, which is fine. That's your prerogative. Now, it's not like the Cowboys didn't try. We'll get to that momentarily. Because the Cowboys did, in fact, try. Hold off on that one. The media went and said after, well, the Cowboys did trade for people. They just traded them a couple months ago. And since they don't have a late day pick, a third day pick, which they do, that's complete bull. When they don't have a late day pick, they couldn't trade for anybody. Isn't there first round, second round, a third round, a seventh round in the draft? There's not 4 through 6. Isn't there a first round, a second round, a third, and 2 sevenths that you have? You had 5 picks on top of comp picks that you were gonna get. You are gonna probably end this year, you can probably have about 7, 8 picks. Okay. So don't tell me you didn't have the ammo. You did. They brought up the fact that the Cowboys traded for Gilmore, Cooks, and Lance in the offseason. Yes. Yes, they did. But every other team in the conference that is a contender, excluding the Bears did trade for Montez Sweat, and they're not exactly contenders. But otherwise, everyone else got better because they got a player that they didn't have before. And the Eagles, they did it with Kevin Byard about over a week ago. Like, that's what they did. If I'm Cowboy fans, and I am, that's what I'm mad at. The fact that Cowboys didn't want to pull the trigger on it. But I'm mad at also the media going and telling them, well, the Cowboys did make trades, they just did it in June, July, and not in October. And I'm not saying that it has to be like a Danielle Hunter or a another guy like Max Crosby kind of trade. I'm not saying that. It can be an impactful trade. A guy who gets numbers, who doesn't get the respect, like a Heinicke Ngakoue. A guy who who helps everyone else. Older player, but helps everyone else. So Carl Lawson with the Jets. You could easily get those guys. You can get guys on the interior that do that. You can get guys on linebacker that do that. The Broncos, if you would have called about the linebackers, you probably would have gotten one of them for a pretty cheap deal. They chose not to. So, am I frustrated the Cowboys did not trade for anybody? Yes, I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated that we had to do this dog and pony show over and over again. I'm frustrated that sometimes the Cowboys don't make a trade for no reason. But I'm also more upset, not frustrated, but upset when the media goes and says, or the Cowboys go to the media, who then spins it and says, "Well, we couldn't. Trades are hard to come by." No, they're not. No, they're not. How are you supposed to do anything if you don't call about this player, about this player, about this player? It's not like you made those trades with Gilmore, Lance, and Cooks 2 weeks ago. You made it a couple months ago. Your team did not get better. Now, I felt the Cowboys should have gotten a corner. Jalen Johnson was available. It was a late availability, but it was there. It was supposedly a second round pick, which is completely fair. Johnson, who is 25, has been the best corner of the Bears, would fit in Dallas. Not a ball hawk guy, but a guy who is really solid. He does have injury issues, but a really solid corner. He was going probably for a second round pick and some change. That's how it was termed. Dallas easily could have done that. They have 2 7s. They easily could have said, here's a second and here's a 7th. Or here's a second, here's a player, and out you go. That's easily what they could have done. Instead, they said, nope, too expensive. Yeah, like if it would be like if I went to a store and I wanted to buy eggs or something, and I go to this store and the eggs are $100 or some absurdity. I would be like, okay, that's way too expensive. Let me go get these eggs that cost $60. Still expensive. I also understand that eggs don't cost $60 and $100, but I'm just giving a fair point. Okay, we're not going to do that, so let's do this. Or it's kind of like you go to a store, you're buying something that costs $10. You can pay for that in multiple ways. You can give a $10 bill, and there it is. Here's $10. Boom. I could do 2 5s. I could do 10 1s. I can do a 5 and 5 1s. I can do whatever. The point that I'm trying to make to you is there's more than one way to make a trade happen. Dallas didn't like the price. Okay, sure, whatever. But don't pretend that you guys the trades are hard to come by and they don't come around. This is not like it's a meteor shower and it only happens once a year. It happens every year. It happens every year, all times during the year until the deadline. Again, you don't have to make an impactful move. Last year you brought in Hankins. That was an impactful move. Was not a very experienced guy who's going to help in run defense. That's what you needed at the time. That's what you got very cheaply, and he's still here because he helps with that. You don't need a star, but if you can get someone to help, one of my family members and I, we always talk about this, and I'll close this part of burying the media for the Cowboys momentarily. He's a Patriots fan. I'm a Cowboys fan. And we're talking, and I said, Lucas, my brother, listen, I don't feel like people realize just how many players are Hall of Fame worthy, how many people we say should be in the Hall of Fame, how many people actually get in the Hall of Fame, and how many people are just good players that did their job well. And he said, I understand that. And I brought up the example of you have all these players in the Legion of Boom. Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor. But who's someone that we don't talk about? Browner. We don't talk about him. And he was a good player. We talk about Butler and his Super Bowl interception. That doesn't happen if Browner doesn't make a play early in the game or early on that drive. Doesn't happen. But we never talk about it. But he was a good player. He was the reason they won that Super Bowl. He was the reason that Legion of Boom was that good. Because otherwise, it's one less person and it's not the Legion of Boom anymore. So as much as we talk about how good the Butler interception was, it all stems of Browner was the corner who made a play when they needed it. He's not a big name guy. Is he going to be in the Hall of Fame? No. But sometimes you just need a good player who plays well and does what he needs to do. You don't need a Hall of Famer every time. That's very much a misconception. You don't need a Champ Bailey. You don't need Deion Sanders. You need somebody who can do the job, do it well, and still everyone goes and says, that man's a bad boy. Is he Richard Sherman in his prime? No. Is he, is he Darrell Revis? No. Tyler? No. Deion Sanders? No. But is he a good corner? Yes. Does he make a lot of mistakes? No. Is it hard to beat him? Yes. Sometimes that's all you need. Now, moving on to Falcons before we hit. Actually, no, let's do this first. What it will take for the Cowboys to beat the Eagles. This game is at Sunday at 4:25. We will talk about this in the game predictions. But that's the question. It's going to be, what do the Cowboys have to do to beat the Eagles in Philadelphia? Now, moving on to the Falcons, we have a benching of a quarterback. Desmond Ridder has been benched for Taylor Heinicke. Arthur Smith is very much on the end of this rope. This has to work. It has to. There's nothing else you can do. He's been there 3 years. This will be his fourth starting quarterback. You had Matt Ryan, didn't work. You brought in Marcus Mariota, didn't work. You drafted Desmond Ridder last year. You put him in. It didn't really work. Enough, but not. He was fine, but not good enough. Now you're giving it to Taylor Heinicke. If this doesn't work, is Arthur Smith out? If they don't win the division, I'd say so. But that division's not very good either, so they may still have a chance. Well, of course, they have an absolute chance to make it, but otherwise, it might be goodbye, Arthur Smith. Next, predictions for Week 8. We're gonna do the first game we're gonna do Dolphins Chiefs. Now, this one is happening in Frankfurt, Germany. So there's a couple things to this before we really talk about my prediction of who I think is gonna win. I also didn't put it in the description. I will put that in as soon as I say it. So, first of all, how is this game decided to go and be played in Germany? And how did it end up not being played in prime time? Both these teams are above 500, both 6-2, as they head to Germany. This could easily be the preview of the title game. This was explained on NBC's Football Morning in America column this week. Kansas City wanted a game in Germany. Every team has to play a game at an international site once every 8 years, and the Chiefs wanted their game to be in Germany since they have a global marketing rights there. Next up, the next thing that they say is divisional games typically are international games. So the Chiefs, the home team, were limited to 6 home opponents. The Chiefs have a massive primetime slate with the Eagles, Bills, and Bengals on schedule. All three were deemed late season games by the league, with CBS getting a 4:25 doubleheader window in December for Chiefs Bills and Chiefs Bengals. Chiefs Eagles was the Monday Night Football pet, with the Chiefs having 9 home games, which is absurdity, by the way. 6 opponents were eliminated for an international game based on divisional matchups. 3 were eliminated for other television windows. Dolphins, Bears, Lions were left. The Chiefs asked the NFL not put the Bears matchup overseas since that would be the only time the Bears would play Kansas City for 8 years. The NFL was intrigued by the Lions for the NFL kickoff game. So the Dolphins were the last opponent left. It continues and says the league lucked out with Kansas City and Miami, first game in Germany. Though the Chiefs have lost a home game as a result, both teams are 6-2. The game is at 9:30. It's the only game in that time slot. Everyone will be glued to that TV. Now, everyone being glued to that TV to watch that game. Now, the next thing, first of all, I don't like the fact that it's in Frankfurt. I understand you wrote it out all nicely. I get it, but I don't like it. I don't like it. So, but that's just my opinion. So, there was also other news that came out, I believe. Let's see if I can get the thing. Here we go. Chiefs wide receiver. He was talking about the travel to Germany. This was from Marquez Valdez Scantling. He was talking about having to travel to Germany for the Week 9 game against the Dolphins. He said, quote unquote, "It sucks." Now, he's not talking about the team he faced sucks. He's talking about the flight. He says, "Yeah, it sucks," he said on a one-on-one interview with CBS Sports. I mean, obviously it sucks. We have to travel 9 hours for a home game when Arrowhead is right down the street. But obviously we don't have other fans that are all over the but all we do have other fans all over the world, not just the United States, so it gives them the opportunities to see some of their favorite players play. Which is a way to save it, but at the same time, it's like, you know what? I don't like it. I don't want to be in Germany. I have to fly 9 hours to Germany to play a game. If I was me, I would fly out today after practice, fly through the night to get acclimated as much as I could for the Sunday game. Now, as I said, I didn't write my prediction is in here. So let's first begin with the prediction. Here we go. We have Dolphins versus Chiefs. Chiefs are favored in this game by 2.5, minus 2.5. I like what the Dolphins have done. I thought they had a bounce back game. I thought they were good. I don't care for what the Chiefs have done. The last game they played Denver, they only scored 9 points. Do I think the Chiefs can bounce back? Yes, but I'm going to take the Dolphins to win. And we're going to have an interesting conversation about the Chiefs and how they play, even though the media won't want to. But I have this this will be a fairly low scoring affair. I'm gonna have it go 24-14. Our next game is Seahawks versus the Ravens. The Ravens are favored in this game. 5.5 is minus 5.5. I have the Ravens winning this for this week. This reason. The Ravens have played lights out. Seattle, I still have questions. So I have Ravens winning. I don't think they can stop Lamar. I understand the Ravens are up and down. One week they'll play great, like they played against Detroit. The next week when they played Arizona, they look terrible. But I have the Ravens winning. I have it 31-24. It's a close game, but I have Ravens pulling it out. Next up, we have, and I'm going to put it this way because we're going to do the Sunday Night Football game before I do the Cowboys-Eagles game. So we're going to have the Bills versus the Bengals. At -2 for the Bengals. And the problem I have with this is I'm gonna say the Bengals are gonna win. Because the Bengals, in my opinion, 14 away and the Bills play with their food. There's games they played Tampa. They were up by 14 points, and yet they still nearly lost if Chris Godwin just looked for the ball in the end zone. The Bills play with their food too much. So I'm gonna have the Bengals win. I think they win 28-17. Now we have Cowboys. This is the afternoon game, the 4:25 game. Cowboys versus Eagles. The Eagles are favored by 3, so they're not really giving a whole lot. Vegas is very much saying that it could go either way at this point. Like both teams are that good when they play at their best. I don't know if we've seen the Eagles' best yet. We've seen the Cowboys' best, but the problem is that doesn't happen every week for the Cowboys. So the under in this game is 46. I don't even know if it gets to 46. I don't know. I'd hit the over on this one, I think, because I don't know exactly what to expect. Now, I'm gonna say this. I think this game and the next time they face each other, which will be a Sunday Night Football game in December, when they faced the I think this series between the two, these two games will decide the division. Because I don't think anyone's really gonna pull away. It's gonna be one of those things of a team will lose and a team will win during the year, and then it will switch because it's just no one's really playing up to their potential as far as I see it. If the Cowboys play the way they played against the Rams, they win this. If the Eagles play against the way they played the Rams, they'll lose it because I think Dallas will just keep it they'll just keep on fighting. So I'm gonna put it in the air that the Cowboys win this game. I'm gonna have it in a game where it's 28-20 because I think Dallas is gonna make sure this is not a touchdown. This is not a touchdown game. You're gonna have to go for two, and you're gonna have to get to tie it. You can't win this game if you go for two. We're gonna force you to tie. And I think that's how Dallas has to play this. Now, how do the Cowboys win against Philadelphia? That's the real question. Well, number one, have this offense look like they did against the Rams. CeeDee Lamb, target him a bunch. Let Dak Prescott use his legs. Use tight ends. You know, convert on third downs at a high rate. Get first downs on first downs. Get first downs on second downs. Move the ball. Score in the red zone. These are all things that everyone knows how to do or knows that you should do. On defense, force anyone else besides AJ Brown to beat you. Force, I predict this is going to happen. Devontae Smith will go against Stephon Gilmore in this game. DaRon Bland will go against A.J. Brown. In this game, DaRon Bland has to be able to own A.J. Brown. He has to. He's got to prevent A.J. Brown from getting any bit of. They can't allow A.J. Brown to get going. That's what I'm trying to say. You must have Devontae Smith, Goddard try and beat you. That's what you must do. You also must force Jalen Hurts to throw. Don't allow him to scramble. Don't allow him to dump it off to his running backs. Force him to stick in the pocket and let Micah go after him. And if he does try and run, have someone spy him as much as you can. That way you can win. Don't blitz a whole lot. Make them throw takeaways. And then on offense, capitalize. And you'll win this game. It sounds simple. It's really not. But Dallas has to do that. Because I really think Dallas has proven that they can beat the Eagles in Dallas. You must prove it that you can beat the Eagles in Philadelphia. Dak Prescott is 1-0 against Jalen Hurts. He is, if I remember correctly, he has the best record against the Eagles. I think he's one of his best records is against the Eagles. He's 9-3. This has to be one of those games where Dak plays unbelievable. And that this defense goes and becomes vaunted against Jalen Hurts and haunts him. In a game where this probably should have been played on Halloween because there's nothing more Halloween than this game. But if Dallas wants to win, that's the formula. Dallas Cowboys win this game against Philadelphia in Philadelphia 28-20. For NFL World, I'm Jacob Hebert. Out.